Bending forward, I petitioned for it to be merely a party balloon, but upon closer inspection, I discerned that my next thought was one of disappointment. Casey was engaging in sexual intercourse within our domicile. She lacked a committed romantic partner, and this individual might be one of those friends with benefits, a phenomenon that has gained considerable currency in recent times. With my thumb and forefinger, I carefully retrieved the condom from the floor and lifted it. It appeared unused, and the contents were still liquid. While I am not an expert on these matters, it seemed evident that the condom had been filled no more than a week or two ago. My mind was reeling, and I'm certain I vocalized a series of expletives. I needed to sit down on the bed for a moment to collect my thoughts. This condom could only signify one possibility, but the notion of Diana engaging in infidelity was beyond my comprehension. We had been married for 22 years, and I had no reason to doubt her fidelity. She is 43 years of age and continues to be the object of flirtation by younger men. The only indications of her advancing years are laugh lines, which she attributes to her concern that they detract from her natural beauty. I informed her that these lines serve only to enhance her natural beauty, and she smiled and kissed me in response. Her body is as toned as ever. Prior to our marriage, Diana was engaged in regular physical exercise, attending the gym 3 days per week. During the spring of last year, we took a 2-week vacation to the Bahamas. Diana attracted considerable attention in her skimpy bikini. She even treated me to a topless day at the beach. That evening, we engaged in sexual intercourse with a fervor reminiscent of our wedding night. Given that I was already at the dinner table, I was perplexed as to why I was now sitting on our daughter's bed, holding a used condom. I proceeded to shake the cobwebs out of my head and went to the kitchen for a plastic bag. I placed the condom in the bag in an envelope, and then stashed it at the bottom of the freezer in the garage. This was the only I was compelled to preserve the evidence, at least for the time being. I was reluctant to consider the potential consequences of this divorce. Could I forgive Diana? What if she was not willing to forgive me? What if she had developed feelings for this other individual? I was completely out of my element. This situation had arisen with little or no warning. I proceeded upstairs and completed the task of tidying Casey's bedroom, including making the bed. However, I did not take any further action. I then contacted my brother and inquired if he would be available to meet for lunch. Dave, who works in the city, expressed enthusiasm at hearing from me and seemed eager to. I requested that he leave his office for lunch. When I informed Dave that I was treating him, I sat in a booth and lowered my voice. Dave, I am concerned that this will lead to nothing. It is merely between you and me. He replied, Al, I am unsure of what is going on. I proceeded to tell Dave about what I had discovered. He sat there, seemingly in disbelief. I am at a loss to comprehend this, Al. It is not Diana. She has always exhibited affection for you. I initially held the same assumption, but I am at a loss to explain the evidence I have uncovered. There are only 2 of us residing in the house. The only guests we have had this fall were the Johnsons, who stayed in the guest room. I do not believe they. He would surreptitiously enter Casey's room for brief sexual intercourse. What are you going to do? I am inclined to confront Diana in person when she returns home this evening. I am unable to imagine feigning ignorance of the situation. It would be unwise to avoid the issue by failing to confront her. I will explain. 2 months ago, I returned from work earlier than usual. Upon entering the residence, I detected the sound of the rear entrance closing. Initially, I assumed it was Janet departing through the rear exit, so I proceeded to the kitchen. However, I then heard Janet's voice from the upper level. I proceeded upstairs and observed Janet in her robe. I inquired about the situation. I inquired as to the nature of her actions, questioning whether I had inadvertently caught her in the act. I was overcome with rage. Janet became enraged and verbally attacked me for a couple of minutes. She accused me of being irrational for even entertaining the possibility that she had engaged in such an act. As a result of my suspicions, she ceased sexual intercourse with me for 3 weeks. Furthermore, there was a paucity of kissing. The temperature in the house remained frigid until she finally led me out of the house. I remained suspicious, though I did not inform her of this. After that, I kept my eyes and mind open. I am unsure if Janet is aware of this, but for the past 2 months, I have been maintaining a checklist. The checklist included a review of Janet's closet, phone, and bedroom for signs of sexual activity. On 2 occasions, I returned unexpectedly to lunch and paid closer attention to Janet's appearance, any changes in her behavior, and any changes in our sex life. I was curious about the source of this checklist and conducted an online search, which revealed a plethora of results. This led me to the conclusion that there is a vast amount of information available on the internet. As we continued our conversation, our waitress repeatedly came and went, taking our order, delivering lunch, and bringing the check. Throughout this entire interaction, I managed to catch her listening in. When the waitress brought our check, she leaned in and spoke. I observed my partner checking his phone. He and his mistress were exchanging a steady stream of messages. He attempted to deny it, but it was too late. I terminated the relationship. I left the restaurant, unsure of my next steps. I sat in my study and listened. To Romanov, classical music has a soothing effect and facilitates cognitive processes. Were there any other indications of infidelity? It is worth noting that Diana frequently worked late, returning home in the evening and even stopping by the office on Saturdays. There were also trips out of town. What did Dave do in response? I inquired as to whether there had been any alterations in her conduct. Last month, Diana spent an hour in the bathroom, soaking in the tub and engaging in personal grooming activities. Upon completion, she summoned me to the bedroom. Upon my arrival, I observed her in a silk robe that I had never previously seen. Diana then embraced me and initiated the process of undressing me and instructing me to shower. I proceeded to shave and bathe, returning to the bedroom with a renewed vigor. Diana was lying on the bed, the covers removed, and we engaged in a passionate kiss. I proceeded to unbutton her silk top. Subsequently, I removed her top, which was made of silk, from her shoulders. My hands caressed her breasts, which were perfect, and my fingers teased her nipples. We took our time exploring each other's bodies, as we had not done so in 23 years. On the day I proposed to Diana, I had touched her body for the first and only time, and I had never tired of holding it in my hands were occupied with her intimate areas as I leaned in to remove her pajama bottoms. I was prepared for this, but when I pulled the bottoms down from her hips and slid them down her legs, I was met with a surprising sight. Diana had shaved her mound and lips completely, leaving them completely bare. This was a new experience for me, as she had always been neatly trimmed. However, she had never been completely bare. I looked up at her, and she just looked back at me with a mischievous smile on her face. "Do you like it?" I was speechless. Therefore, I have always enjoyed looking down at Diana. As I previously stated, she has always been neatly trimmed, so it is not comparable to the experience of wading through the jungle in the film. The sensation of hair caught in the throat is akin to a physical sensation, yet this was an entirely different experience. I have previously observed images of individuals with bald, and have viewed a few pornographic films where the actresses were cleanly shaved. However, this was the first occasion I had witnessed such a phenomenon in real life. In response to Diana's question, I lowered myself and, after kissing her upon her recovery from her first orgasm, she inquired as to whether we might engage in a further act of sexual intercourse. I responded in the affirmative, instructing her to assume a supine position. We proceeded to achieve orgasm on multiple occasions in rapid succession. Upon reaching our climax, we gazed at one another and began to laugh simultaneously. We then articulated a common sentiment, namely that the experience had been nothing short of remarkable. We then engaged in further laughter, this time in a more subdued manner. Once we had regained our composure, we proceeded to the bathroom and showered together, kissing throughout. It was approximately 1 month ago that I engaged in this sexual act. Until today's conversation with my brother at lunch, it had not even crossed my mind that Diana was shaving for anyone other than me. It is now time for me to conduct another investigation. Diana, I am at your disposal. Given that I will be returning home in a couple of hours, there is no better time to commence my investigation than now. My initial search of Diana's wardrobe revealed nothing out of the ordinary, apart from a new bikini in a Nordstrom bag that was still tagged. This may be indicative of her attire for her partner. Upon returning to Phoenix, I will investigate further. Upon further examination of her belongings, I found no new items of interest. There were no additional items of feminine undergarments, no nightwear, no short dresses or tops that I had not previously observed her wearing, and no additional contraceptive supplies. By the time I had completed my search, it was time to prepare dinner. It was a salad night, so the task was relatively simple. I opened a bottle of Burgundy Pinot Noir and sat in the kitchen waiting for Diana to return. When she walked through the door 15 minutes later, I was astonished. This was the woman I had suspected of cheating on me. She was. She placed her briefcase on the floor, embraced me, and kissed me deeply. I detected the taste of wine on her lips. I am gratified to be home for 2 weeks with my family. I submitted my report this afternoon. It is complete. I hope you do not mind. I accompanied my team to the Metropolitan, where we purchased beverages. I expressed my gratitude to all those who had worked so hard. I consumed 1 glass of wine and proceeded directly home. She kissed me again, saying, "Oh, darling, I missed you so much these past few months." I embraced her and said, "I've missed you too." She then asked if this meant I would have no work for the next 2 weeks. I am hopeful that I will not have any work, but I am not surprised if a question or two arises and I am required to take a call. If I am fortunate, I will not have to leave. I will endeavor to limit my absence to a minimum. I am eagerly anticipating 2 weeks with you in Casey. Did she call? I spoke with her this morning. Her flight lands at 11, at 10 p.m., we will collect her. Does she have plans for tomorrow evening? We discussed it, and she will have dinner with us. She is looking forward to returning home. She then proceeded to prepare a meal. Following this, she informed me that she would be meeting with friends for dinner. She stated that we would spend the entire day on Sunday catching up. Diana and I had a wonderful evening. We consumed wine, nearly finished the second bottle, ate salad, drank 2 brandies, and conversed for the entirety of the time. I nearly forgot about my suspicions while we chatted until approximately 10 p.m. I was inebriated and experiencing excessive yawning. It would be prudent to retire for the evening. I required a period of rest. Diana promptly succumbed to slumber as soon as her head touched the pillow. I, however, did not fall asleep. I desired to read for an hour. Thereafter, she was in a deep slumber, and I engaged in an unprecedented action. I reached out and grabbed her phone from the bedside table. I pressed the button to unlock it. It was locked. It took me at least 2 hours to fall asleep. After that, the waitress's words haunted my thoughts. I caught my boyfriend was checking his phone. Diana arose before me, and I detected the aroma of coffee brewing. I proceeded to the kitchen and greeted her with a cheerful, "Good morning, sleepyhead." I apologized for my previous behavior, citing my overwhelming fatigue. I vowed to make amends when Casey went out with her friends that evening. Diana's demeanor shifted, becoming once again affectionate. However, I remained suspicious, questioning why her phone was locked. At 1 o'clock, I devised a plan. In the morning, I retrieved Diana's phone from the kitchen table. "Diana, I require the contact details of Sandra's husband, with whom she had a business relationship. He was the proprietor of a fly rod that I wished to purchase. Might I request that you access the contacts list on your phone and provide me with the relevant information?" Sandra was Diana's colleague, and her husband was an avid fly fisherman. I did not await Diana's response, I simply pressed the button indicating that the phone was locked. "Diana, I am inquiring as to when you began locking your phone. The password is the same as the one used for our garage door, which is 42. I began locking my phone after I returned to my desk and discovered Kevin. Upon reviewing the photographs on my mobile device, I discovered that I had left the phone on my desk while I was in a meeting. Upon returning to my desk and finding Kevin in possession of the phone, I immediately took action. I informed Diana of the incident and informed her that I would be disciplining Kevin. Diana was aware of the potential consequences of her actions and was therefore issued a warning. However, if there were to be a further violation of company policy, she would face immediate dismissal. I had not informed you of this incident because it was an HR issue and we always treated such matters as confidential. I entered the password, 42, while Diana was speaking, and the phone was unlocked. I would have fired him. You are too lenient. It is probable that I would have done so, but his wife had recently given birth. I hope that he will seize the opportunity to make amends. I have taken the liberty of writing down Sandra's mobile number and will contact her later to continue our conversation about fishing. Of course, I could always use another fishing rod. I did not terminate the call, so I am curious as to why these photographs in your gallery are of such interest that they prompted this man to almost be dismissed from his position. Diana laughed, indicating that she found the situation amusing. I am intrigued to learn more about this. There are no photographs of my lover in the nude here. There are no selfies of me, and there is only a couple of photographs from a flower show that we attended with Janet. In the previous month, she had sent some appealing images of Casey. She had also sent images from the previous semester. Diana was a persistent and nagging presence. There were no images of his lover in the nude. There were only images of flowers and Casey. Diana was telling the truth. He continued to scroll through her gallery. Diana laughed again. He was annoyed. Diana asked who his lover was. He hoped he did not sound as annoyed as he felt. Diana laughed again. Diana asked why he was asking. Diana was driving him crazy. They continued to discuss dinner menus and other topics while he continued to discreetly browse her text. Diana was preoccupied and I was unable to ascertain any further information. We met Casey at the airport and proceeded to embark on a fortnight-long family vacation. Our itinerary encompassed mountainous regions and skiing, as well as 3 days of snowshoeing in the picturesque valley. Our accommodation was a rented cabin situated in close proximity to the Chwick River. Diana attended to a few work-related calls and spent a single day at the office. The mystery surrounding the hidden bikini was finally revealed when I opened my Christmas gift from Diana, 2 tickets to the Bahamas scheduled for early March. Something special to wear while we're there, she said, it's damn near embarrassing. Casey helped her up and held out 2 tiny pieces of fabric. Mom, please. I probably would have forgotten all about this condom mystery if not for my brother. Diana just showered me with love and affection throughout those 2 weeks. Diana and I threw a party inviting many of our neighbors. My brother was there with his wife, Janet. They lived in the next neighborhood over with their 2 teenagers, twin boys. I like most of our neighbors. We're in one of the few neighborhoods in Seattle, where people are known for taking the time to get to know their neighbors and engage in conversation. Approximately 12 couples were present at our residence that evening. One neighbor, Ed Parker, stood out as a particularly disagreeable figure. Despite Parker's reputation as a braggart and a flirt, Diana insisted on inviting him, citing Parker's wife, Sylvia, as a reason. Parker's wife was described as a kind individual, yet Diana's decision to invite them was influenced by Parker's reputation as a womanizer. At the gathering, Ed Parker consumed a considerable quantity of alcohol and began to engage in excessive verbalization. He and Hank Johnson proceeded to the inner courtyard to smoke. It should be noted that smoking is not permitted in our residence. Diana was situated outside, and Ed proceeded to engage Hank in a lengthy monologue about a noteworthy occurrence within the neighborhood. While using the bathroom, Dave was able to hear Ed's words through the open window. However, Hank quickly lost interest in Ed's monologue and went back inside. It is notable that since losing his job at the bank, Ed has exhibited a tendency to remain in the neighborhood. At this juncture, it is pertinent to interject that given his status as a stay-at-home husband and father, it is plausible that Ed Parker has the time, opportunity, and inclination to engage in sexual relations with any of the local women. The following day, Dave approached and relayed what he had overheard. I was taken aback when Dave inquired whether I believed Ed Parker was the individual in possession of the condom. It is highly unlikely that Diana would engage in such an act with that individual. She is aware of my negative opinion of him and considers him to be a contemptible person. Furthermore, I do not believe that Diana would be unfaithful to me. However, the condom, how might one explain this phenomenon? I am uncertain as to the veracity of this assertion. If I were to hypothesize, I would posit that a certainty is necessary for such an assertion to be valid. It would be unfeasible for me to accept the idea of my wife engaging in infidelity. I would be unable to reconcile such a belief with my perception of her character. The language utilized by Dave is inappropriate and inexcusable. I am his wife, and therefore, his comments are directed towards me. Dave did not complete his thought, however, I was able to comprehend his perspective. I considered the possibility of obtaining DNA from Diana and Ed to compare it to the DNA on the condom. This seemed implausible. I retrieved it and considered whether it would constitute genuine evidence that I could present in court, should the necessity arise. I opted instead to pursue a more straightforward course of action. I would be absent from the city for 4 days, which would afford any potential adversaries sufficient time to exploit the situation should it arise. The clerk at the spy shop was particularly obliging, perhaps because I left the premises with equipment valued at over for a mere $0, I could set up a motion-sensitive camera in Casey's room. It would be undetectable among the knickknacks. I also placed several items on her shelf. The guest room was similarly equipped with new radio clocks with cameras inside. Our bedroom presented a more challenging scenario. Any new items in the room would likely be noticed. I ultimately selected a voice-activated recorder hidden under my nightstand, which should suffice. It was a particularly arduous week, arguably the longest of my life. I spoke with Diana every evening. If something was amiss, she was the first person I would contact. Despite her status as a celebrated actress, on Friday she uttered only 2 phrases, "I love you," and "I miss you." She subsequently took the day off and met me at the airport. We proceeded to consume takeout from our preferred establishment, Thai, in the comfort of our bed. The remainder of the weekend was spent attempting to make up for lost time. Unfortunately, Diana was obliged to depart for Phoenix on Tuesday to attend the official signing of the purchase contract. I apologize for the delay. The lawyers did not complete the paperwork until Wednesday, and by the time the ink dried, it took the board a few days to organize the trip. I will be leaving on Tuesday morning and returning Wednesday night. There is nothing that can be done about it. I hope this will be the last major project for you this year. You have been working extremely hard. One might be forgiven for thinking that the situation was somewhat precarious. However, the individual in question did an admirable job, and it is clear that they have a great deal of affection for the woman in question. Indeed, throughout the weekend, they were hopeful and optimistic that the recordings would not lead to any negative consequences on Tuesday morning. Diana departed on her flight at 6 a.m., and the individual in question proceeded to pour themselves a cup of coffee and settle into the office to review the cameras and voice recordings. They began with the most likely room, which was Casey's room. The image soon came into view. The date and time indicated Wednesday at noon. 2 individuals engaged in sexual intercourse, and I observed the act being carried out. I was horrified at the destruction of at least 1 marriage and possibly 2. I had no idea how Sylvia would react to seeing a copy of this video, which I had planned to share with her after Ed undressed. She then got on her knees and satisfied him. Subsequently, he proceeded to engage in sexual intercourse with Casey on her bed. They did not remove the bedspread, but rather had sexual intercourse directly on top of it. I rapidly advanced through the scene, as I was primarily interested in seeing how it concluded. At certain points, I was curious to hear what these 2 individuals were saying, particularly given that they were directing unpleasant comments at their unsuspecting spouses. Therefore, I rewound and paused the scene. I observed and listened, then fast-forwarded again to ascertain their subsequent actions. I stepped back and listened. "Oh, how I wish we didn't have to use these contraceptive condoms. I wish you could impregnate me. I want to feel you inside me. Why don't you just take the contraceptive pills? That way, we could do without these contraceptive condoms because my husband has undergone a vasectomy, and I don't want to risk him discovering that I'm on the contraceptive pill. I am opposed to the use of birth control, as I am reluctant to take any action that might result in an unintended pregnancy. When I became pregnant with twins, I was extremely anxious. I decided to wait until they were born to ascertain whether they were his. Had they been half Asian, the situation would have been significantly more challenging. That was the last time I made a misstep by becoming involved with someone of a different race. How many men have you slept with while you've been married?" My sister, Janet Parker, was incensed and Ed Parker made advances towards her. She rebuffed him and responded to his inquiry. She did not divulge this information to him, but she was his 3rd sexual partner. She has a preference for men and enjoys the care her husband provides her and their children. They have a fulfilling life together, but he does not satisfy all of her needs. This is why they must exercise caution. He nearly discovered their secret in October. This was the last time they had sexual intercourse at her residence. Given that your wife is absent for extended periods of time, it is the safest option until my niece returns, which will be difficult to explain. Once she had finished her monologue, Ed pushed her back onto the bed and initiated sexual intercourse. I terminated the audio recording and contacted Dave at work to request his presence after dinner. He arrived, and the encounter was unsuccessful. Dave wept for an extended period and consumed a considerable quantity of alcohol. I contacted Janet and informed her of the situation. I informed her that Dave would be staying at our residence. I did not disclose the circumstances that had prompted his excessive indulgence in his desires, and she did not inquire about them. I will not provide a detailed account of the events that transpired on Wednesday. After recuperating from his hangover, Dave and I took the day off. We visited my lawyer's office and consulted with their family specialist. Dave filed for divorce, and certain aspects of the proceedings did not align with her expectations. The twins were subsequently placed in the custody of their father. The boys were 14, and they decided to live with their father. I was prepared for them to hear rather than see their mother's confession of betraying their father. Fortunately, that was not necessary. The boys preferred to stay with their father since Dave wanted to take the boys. The judge awarded him the house, and he was supposed to pay Janet maintenance for 2 years. However, over those 2 years, it amounted to only 1. Sylvia divorced Ed using the video I provided her. She remained in the residence, and he departed. Fortunately, this occurred because Dave was searching for him. I was informed that Janet attempted to persuade Ed to take up residence with her, but he declined, stating that he would not have anything to do with a person who had been unfaithful. Diana and I provided assistance in every way possible. We were able to provide assistance to Dave in navigating the challenges of that initial year. Diana was particularly instrumental in supporting her 2 godchildren, who relied on her as a trusted confidant. Even Casey sought guidance from her cousins. Following their graduation in May, Diana spent the summer with us before relocating to Portland in September. From a female perspective, I am digressing. I must inform you that the other video and the recorder revealed nothing of consequence. In fact, the recorder in our bedroom did capture a few of Diana's phone calls, at least half of which occurred during my business trip. Diana conversed with her mother, Casey, and her superior. The specifics of these discussions are not important, however, it is notable that Diana holds me in high regard and that I have no cause for concern. It appears that she views me as a desirable partner. I did not inform Diana of my suspicions, as I felt that certain matters were better left unspoken. However, she was now aware of the camera in Casey's room. I devised an explanation and informed her that I suspected Janet had used a key from our house to gain access to the property. I stated that I needed to prove this hypothesis. Diana appeared to accept this rationale until nearly a month had elapsed since the incident in question. Diana and I had retired for the evening and were enjoying a nightcap after dinner. While reading in the living room, Diana suddenly looked up from her book and inquired as to whether I was cheating on her. I remained silent, seemingly taken aback by the question. Diana sat in her chair, staring at me, awaiting my response. I then suggested that we move to the couch, where I would tell her a story. The circumstances surrounding the condom, my conversation with Dave, the nosy waitress, the blocked phone, the shaved, the overtime work, and the travels, all of these factors weighed heavily on one side of the scale. I then informed her that, despite all these unusual occurrences, I had never truly believed she could betray our marriage. She was not the kind of woman who would engage in such behavior. Diana regarded me with a look that indicated she was attempting to grasp the situation. She then embraced me and uttered the words, "Alec,